Hello everyone, this is Maria from the configure stage. This might be a bit weird, pre-recorded presentation. However, I'm happy I got to do that, so thank you for sitting in this. So today I'll be presenting Redesigning GitLab Managed Apps, which is a work in progress. So I think this is a great opportunity to present the work and also gather feedback from you. Well, not in a synced way, but in an async way, considering I'll be on a plane soon. So I'm working on the configure stage with Tori. This is comprised of two groups, orchestration and system. And I think Tori gave an overview of our stage the last time she presented, so I'm going to skip that today. So a bit of an introduction about GitLab Managed Apps. What are GitLab Managed Apps? GitLab Managed Apps are applications that can be installed directly from GitLab on a cluster with a single click installation. And these applications provide various services depending on the application one chooses to install. Some of these applications are quite important for us because they are needed for the review apps and for auto DevOps to be functional. So quite important. I have included here a screenshot from our documentation about the Git installation of the applications. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty because this work is more about redesigning the UI experience, not the underlying logic. So I'm not going to get deeply into that. I would like here to just point out that we have these applications available at the moment, and as I will mention later, part of the reason we're working on this project is because we are adding more applications. So moving on to the users and jobs to be done. Each application has a different job to be done. So, well, a generic job to be done would be like, as a developer, I want to easily be able to install applications on my cluster. However, if we break it down to different applications, we could, for example, use Prometheus as an example and use the job to be done. As a developer, I want to be able to install and monitor and alert system that will help me supervise my deployed applications. For Knative, as a developer, I want to be able to create, deploy, and manage serverless workloads from a Kubernetes cluster. And for Cert Manager, as a developer, I want to be able to issue certificates on my cluster and ensure that my certificates are up to date. So the user is mainly a developer. If there are more users, maybe a DevOps person could use an application that is intended for, an ops person, for an operator. So it really depends on the app. So the redesign project was initiated because, as I mentioned, we're about to introduce three or more applications, and the current design does not really help the user identify the dependencies between the applications. Some cannot be installed without the installations of others. Some cannot be installed at the same time. There is no categorization. They're just in a flat list. So as they grow, the list will grow as well, and the experience will be impeded. So the proposal is to reassess our UI for the applications and alter the experience so that the users will be able to see the relationship between the applications, search and find relevant applications, and know which applications are relevant to them. Additional scope to beautify and modernize the UI, create a scalable design as they grow, and improve the information and status visibility across all the pages. So this issue started as a redesign of the applications, but as we're moving forward, we decided with Tori and Daniel, who is the PM for the orchestration group, that it would be valuable to relook at the whole experience in the cluster and redesign the cluster details page. This is a bit unlike the way of the MVC way of working, but in a redesign, I believe it's a vision piece of work that can first be designed as a whole, and then we intend to break it down into pieces. As I said, this is work in progress, so I have worked on part of the beautification and redesign of the applications, but the cluster details page redesign is missing. So you will be seeing more of this. So the redesign process that I followed, initially I analyzed the current experience. I created an issue and went through the journey of going into the cluster list, going into a cluster. Then this is the initial view. I will have a more close-up later. Then installing applications and identifying which are the states, the messaging, alerts, errors, etc., and asking various questions. You can see all that in this issue. So a close-up to the listing page. Here are the clusters that the user has access to. These could be on a project level or in a group level. So this is identified here. And then there's the environment scope, which could be production, it could be testing. This is defined by the user. Then the cluster page, this is the cluster name. And here's the section of the cluster details. Then there's a section for the cluster health, which is initially empty. And then the available applications. And then cluster details, more cluster details, and advanced settings, which I'm not going to go through in this presentation, as I haven't worked on this page yet. So I first identified the application states. These could be available to install, which we can see here, besides this one. So these have a gray background and an active button. And also we can see the configuration fields. Then we have the installed applications, which have a white background. The button is turned to uninstall. In this case, we also have a manage button, and then 2 of the applications cannot be uninstalled prior to other installed applications. So this is part of the redesign work to make this messaging clearer. And then we have the disabled state. Then we have some alerts. So in this case, it's a warning. And in this case, we have an information message. And finally, we have embedded forms. So the user might need to configure some things for the default installation. And this is also part of the redesign work, that we don't want to clutter the interface, but we would like to potentially introduce a 2-step installation where the user first shows the intention that they want to install an application, and then we show progressive disclosure, the fields that they need to configure. So after identifying all the states and the design work that needed to be done, I did a bit of market research to see what other companies are doing. So I investigated GitHub, the Google platform and the iOS store, which is a bit different, but still there are applications available for installation. And then I did a bit of digging further into the Google platform to see what kind of information they show for the applications. Again, asking some questions for the PM, whether we could enhance the information on our side, similar to the Google platform. You can see further details in the issue again. And then I moved on doing a GitLab pattern audit, where I investigated. Initially, from the beginning, I had a card design in mind, so I investigated what card designs we have available in the UI. One of them is the boards, and the other one is the labels list in a mobile view. And then I investigated tables and lists. So how do we list items? Are there any designs that are useful or reusable? So this is the audit. You can see a few more screenshots in the issue. And then moving to the first design iteration, I first worked on redesigning the cluster listing for 4 reasons. I thought it would be useful for the user to be able to see what applications would be installed on a cluster without having to go actually in the cluster page. Then as I was doing my market research, I discovered that other vendors provide more information about a cluster in the list view, so I thought that would also be quite useful. I introduced tabs here for discoverability. So for a big company, for example, they can have many clusters in an instance or in a project or on the instance on the group level. So it's quite useful here for a bigger number of clusters to be able to filter. And finally, I thought we could beautify this page a bit. So this is still work in progress, and I still have to create an issue to get feedback, but this is the current state. Following, I started with a card design. I first explored 3 card designs. One is a compact, then a square, and a rectangular one. Currently, I'm thinking the rectangular one would fit the information we usually provide for the applications, or a bigger rectangular one. It would be great to have your feedback on that. Then I investigated the buttons and actions. We use the pattern of install and cancel. So primary action on the left and cancel on the right, which sometimes does not work because the installation button would sit on the right and then would jump to the left. So this is another point I would appreciate feedback on. Also explored the animation of the expanding card to show the edit fields. So now I have to explore the messaging of the button. Would that be install, get, or something else that would prepare the user that they're not going to install, but an interaction is going to take place for configuration. Moving on. Next thing I explored were the alerts and information. I have already ruled out the first option here, as you can see, because of space restrictions and cluttering. So then I have created another 2 options. Messaging on top of the card is my favorite. Another thing that you could provide feedback on. This is scalable, and it doesn't take space from within the card, because here we could potentially have way more copy. And then a 2-click information interaction. So first the user shows intent, and then we show the appropriate information or warnings. Finally, I investigated the installed status. So the previous screens have the disabled and the available for installation statuses as well. So here it's the installed status. This is purely visual. So I explored quite a lot of components we have. I cannot say I have a favorite, maybe the second option, but yeah, your feedback would be great on that. And then I also explored the body of the card. So once the user installs an application, would it be possible to show information about this installation rather than the information that explain what the application does? So I think this second option would be more useful for the user since they already installed the application and they probably know what it does. Something to discuss with the PM. So the next step for this work, we have to finalize the card component. So I'm going to work with Tim to complete the issue that has been created for pajamas and also plan the dev work. Following that, after we decide the card design, finalize the application design based on the decision we make, and also create interaction specs, document all the dependencies between the current applications, and improve the messaging and information on the screen, and also the error messaging. Then redesign the cluster page. The idea we had with Tori is to split the cluster page in tabs, one tab for the details page and one for the applications, and then investigate introducing an information view mode, since currently all the forms are in edit mode all the time, and then we have some inconsistencies, so we could improve actions and interactions on the page. And then following that, something I didn't mention before, the team is introducing a custom chart app installation experience. We used to call them charts. So this will change completely the experience on the UI. It will affect the function. It will be affected quite a lot, as the user will be able to customly install through a .yaml file, but the UI initially will not change, which will create an inconsistency in the experience. So we will need to look at the how we will bring this experience to the UI. As I mentioned, your feedback and questions are very important and more than welcome. As you're aware, you can comment on the issues that I have included in this presentation. You could reach me on Slack or schedule a coffee chat with me. Thank you very much, and see you all next time.